none of it makes sense, right? Because I don't know if he's just gone, if he's with past relatives. I don't know what I believe. I genuinely don't. I'm Catholic, Christian, fine. But I do not know what I believe. But we're here somehow.
Yeah, that's for sure.
We're here somehow. Something had to happen before the Big Bang Theory. This is the stuff that I think about when I'm high off edibles. So I'm like, there has to be something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to believe. None of it makes sense. Do they just go somewhere else and restart? I don't know, and I don't like to speculate, right?
But I think you do.
I mean, I was speculating, but not consciously.
So, Nicole, we're here.
We are here.
We made this happen, and as I alluded to earlier, what are you doing here?
Well, actually, my friend Michelle had put me onto your podcast right after my grandfather passed, which tomorrow will be 2 months. So it's fresh, pretty new. And you and I connected, and here we are.
And when you told me that, when we initially chatted, and you told me how soon it was, I believe I was polite about it. I think you could remind me. I was like, this is pretty fresh, and I haven't really spoke to.
You're like, good fucking luck, Nicole.
I know. Yeah, I mean, for me too, I'm a little nervous because I am so even though this is my podcast talking about death, I'm so unqualified. Even though experientially I have, but I try to. I don't want to go Dr. Phil on anyone, so I'm just here to give you the space to speak. And I know it is fresh, which is a different perspective. I think it's interesting because people that are going to be listening right now are going through it. So to get inside the brain of you and losing your grandfather, right?
Yeah, basically my father, but
right, which that's in a whole nother hole to go down. It's a great perspective to hear someone so fresh, and I guarantee if you continue to speak 5, 6, 12 months later, you're going to have a totally different perspective.
Oh yeah, I'm still a little bit in denial.
So was that the quote unquote stage you feel like you're in right now?
I'm in a different stage every hour, honestly.
Right. So we should record an hour from now.
In an hour we'll come back and revisit this conversation. I think you got me on a particularly so far okay morning. I did not sleep last night. I was up till 6 a.m. this morning, and then I napped for an hour and then got on the computer and started working. But there are nights when I literally can't sleep and it's all I think about. And oh my goodness, here comes the emotions. I don't want to make this podcast this way, but it's hard. It's like my grandfather and I were so close. And not to take away, because you said, oh, I'm not an expert on this, but you are, because you're a subject matter expert for your own experience. And I think people know how to deal with grief in their own way. But I think when someone says, oh, I'm an expert in grief, yeah, you've studied it, but not one single person is going to have the same exact experience as someone else. So for me, you are an expert. I feel like we're all experts because we're going through it. And so, yeah, it's the process is crazy, as everybody who is going through it knows. And I think for me, I don't know what stage I'm in, because in the beginning, when it first happened, I had realized, okay, you've been going through this anticipatory grief for 2 years now. And maybe even longer. I'm just like, oh my God, what if this next call, what if this is the last time that I'm going to see him when I leave, and I'd be crying on the way home, and it's like, he wasn't even sick then. And then when he got sick, it would just always be something with me. And I'm like, am I a hypochondriac, or is this valid? And it was valid, right? It's always valid because it's just how I felt. But I feel like some days I'm like, okay, you're still a little bit in denial. It's real, but you're also, sometimes you think that you're going to wake up and it's just this nightmare. It's not going to be what it is. And also the way my grandfather passed away was, and I'm sure we'll get into that, is a little bit different. So it was a little bit traumatic. I mean, it's always traumatic for everyone, but it was a little bit more traumatic than I had expected it to happen. And I guess that's the one thing about grief you really just can't have, or death, you really can't have expectations.
No. So, I mean, I try not to have some expectations in life in general. Sometimes my theory is I like to have low expectations, because when I go see a movie, I'm like, oh, this movie, I'm sure it's going to be all right. And then it's great.
Yeah.
So part of me is like, I wonder if I should I don't want to lower my standards. I think those are two different things.
Never.
But nevertheless, before I go into my weird mantras of life, do you want to tell me what happened? Do you think it's important for your process of how he passed?
Yeah, I think it is. One thing I think a lot of people have noticed is, being someone who's in the media and on social media, everyone thinks, oh, you share everything. You're always posting this and that. And people always ask me why I don't post more of my clients or why, athletes and whatnot, or why I don't post this and why I post that and where's more of your life because you're a personality as well. And I tell people who are on the other side of that and say, you post everything, that I really only post less than 10% of my life. My grandfather was a very main character energy in this story, so people felt like they knew him as well. He was part of this whole narrative, obviously not just privately, but publicly. Everybody knew. I guess they knew my daddy issues. I guess they knew like that was my guy for that reason. And so when he and I had a lot of conversations about it, but he got cancer, and he had a million heart things. He had quadruple bypasses, just everything you could think of under the sun. And this man was like, I am not going down. He was like still on ladders the week before he died. Like he just wanted to do everything, so lively. And so I think that's the part that kind of makes you feel like, how did it actually happen like this? So he had MDS, which is a rare form of blood cancer. And I remember when he got diagnosed, it was right before the pandemic hit or whatever. And he called us all for a family meeting. And I knew, like in my heart, before we even got on that Zoom call or were together, I was actually at their house. I said cancer. I don't know what it was. It was just something in me that said cancer, like why out of all things? I just had this feeling for the last couple of weeks that something was up. They put the meeting on the calendar. I went there. Couple hours later, they told us all. And I was like, okay, now what? I know my grandfather was really fortunate to have some of the best doctors. So we went to Columbia first, and then we ended up at Morristown. But we were at Columbia for a bulk of his treatment. And so this man, I mean, when I tell you like he was kicking chemo's ass. Like he was just, you wouldn't have known. You wouldn't have known. He started to get skinny, but like he was good. He didn't have crazy symptoms. And I'm laughing because I'm thinking about this one time where I'm in one of his chemo treatments with him, and the nurse is like, so do you have any side effects? He's like, no. She's like, nausea, nothing. Do you need anything? And he said, no. She goes, I see you're having the side effects of like losing all your hair. And he's like, no, I'm not. And he's bald. And she's like, yeah, I see you don't have eyebrows or eyelashes. He's like, yeah, I cut them off and I shave off my eyebrows. He's like, I don't want fucking facial hair. And I'm just like laughing because I'm like, this is who this person is. Like he always felt like he just would shave his eyebrows. I don't know why he did that, but we would always laugh. And I'm like, my grandmother used to say, you look like you have cancer because you do that and people are going to worry about you. And then he had cancer and they thought that was a symptom, but he wasn't losing hair. Like he would grow a full like facial hair. It was the weirdest thing.
Interesting. I wonder if that's like a mental trick of if he did lose the hair, he's like, no, I did this. The cancer didn't do this to me.
Yeah. No, but he didn't. He had like a beard. Like he would grow really scruffy. I mean, I don't know, right? But he would cut his eyelashes because they were too long, he said, which made no sense. And then he just would razor his eyebrows off every week. And I was like, what are you doing? So towards the end... a
lot of women would be pissed that someone did that, about cutting the eyelashes. I feel like I have long eyelashes. I get comments on those all the time. So I feel like girls, I'm sorry if you're hearing these guys with beautiful eyelashes cutting them off. That sucks.
He lived his way for sure. But he was, a public figure himself. We own our family business is Capizio. So it's a dance company and it's been around for over 135 years. So, we...
It's 105 years?
135 years over.
Jesus.
Yeah, 1887. You guys do the math. I don't even know what year we're at. But it's interesting because they do all the top like performers, everyone who wears Beyonce, Madonna, Meg Thee Stallion. I mean, everyone you could think of, Mick Jagger, ballet shoes, dance sneakers, the tights, everything. So he was always he was a people person and people loved him because he really broke down a lot of silos. But anyways, now I'm getting off track. I want to just tell you everything about him.
There's no track.
But yeah, so towards the end, when chemo stopped working for him, they told him there was nothing else they could do. And it had gotten to this stage that it was like, okay, this is it. We want your quality of life to just be good now because you're not having these symptoms. Like you're going to be tired, but let's see. So he bounced back really good when he was not on chemo. And I was like, it was a mind fuck for me. Because I'm like, he looks good. He's great. We're running around. He wants to drive. He wants to do this. And he could drive. But my grandma didn't want him to drive. So we would go around and do all these things. He wanted to go to the light show during Christmas. This man, you wouldn't even know he had cancer. Then towards the end, we went somewhere else. And we're like, okay, we're going to try something else. We went to Morristown. And these doctors did some other tests. They found things that maybe the first doctor just missed because he wasn't a specialist in this, which that's where it starts getting a little bit, it sucks. Because you're like, what if we went there first? We had kind of had all these options, and, you know, even MD Anderson, which is the number one, we spoke to them too, and we were going to go there, but we had a good plan in place. And look, he did live a long time with cancer, but when I say a long time, it's really not a long time compared to a lot of people. But basically, he needed 4 teeth pulled. So he was going to start this chemo treatment, but he was having tooth pain. He was having pain, and they were like, well, we can't do anything because your blood, you know, your platelets and everything are down so low that we're going to have to pull your teeth in the hospital. So that's when I noticed the ecosystem was starting to be like, you know, shut down. Things were starting to get weaker, but I could see he was tired. He was sleeping a lot of the day, but he still had his sense of humor. Like, he'd tell people to go fuck themselves. He would, you know, like, joke around the way he would and say things that you're just like, you know, it's just funny.
Yeah, that's usually a good meter of how you're feeling. If you tell people to fuck themselves, and you're all right.
Let me tell you something. When he was on the hospice bed, I'm going to get emotional, but like, he said some shit that I don't even know if he knew he was saying. He had to have, but he was still there for that part. Like, the sense of humor it never went, like, till the very last breath. So basically, he went to go get his teeth pulled the night before. My whole family, like, gathered to eat. We always went there for Sunday dinners, this and that, but it was like a Tuesday or Wednesday. We went, I think he was going in on a Thursday. So we went there. We had either Thai food or Chinese food, which since then I can't eat either of those things because it's everything's a trigger for me. But this is like a very big trigger for me. Because I wish, like, should I have stayed longer, even though I lingered. I always do. And by the way, I spent so many weekends with them. Like, I spend more time with my grandparents than friends and family. I mean, I was there almost every weekend. Like, you're 32 years old, get a life. And we would always laugh, but people just loved him. He was a character, even on social media, that people just loved. They felt like they knew him. They wanted more content of him always.
Really?
Oh, yeah. People... I'm not even kidding. People from social media showed up to his wake.
No shit.
Yeah, which is, to me, it's not creepy, but people were like, whoa, you know, the night one was so crazy. It ended up going 4 to 5 hours long, and it was supposed to be 3. And the day one it was busy, but it was like the night one, you couldn't even believe it. And people were coming up to me, and I had no idea who they were. And they'd be like, I just want to say I love your relationship with your grandfather. I have followed you guys on social media, and you don't know me, but we've kind of exchanged DMs sometimes, and I've always said this, and it means so much to me that he meant so much to other people, you know, and that they could share their stories too. But just to show up, like, one person drove from Pennsylvania.
No shit.
Like, deep in Pennsylvania.
I need to see the account, but we'll do that after.
Yeah. But is that nuts?
Yeah, I mean, it's an impact.
Yeah, it's so impactful. So he goes in, and this is where it's like hard, and I think about this every single day. So he goes in and he gets the teeth pulled, and he calls me and he says, all right, Nicole, I'm so fucking happy right now. He's like, you know why? And I'm like, why, Pop? What's going on? I go, because you got your teeth pulled? And he's like, yep, I feel so good. He got 4 random teeth pulled. Like, in the back, he's like, and look, I still have all my front teeth. I'm like, great, you know, but it's harder to chew at that point. So they put him on a liquid diet. Somehow, and I don't want to blame the hospital, I don't want to blame anyone, but somehow, and this is where, you know, it's hard to talk about, but someone brought him like bread or something, like soft bread, and the diet is supposed to be all liquids. And sorry.
Don't say sorry.
And so my grandfather had to do not resuscitate at this point, because he was like, if my time is now, my time is now, you know? And that was only a couple weeks prior that he did that. And they told us about it. And I was like, okay, well, if he goes into sleep, I want him to go peacefully. So I'm at my aunt's house one night with my cousins, and my uncle's in the room with my aunt, not coming out of the room for like an hour. And I'm calling my mom, I'm calling my other aunt, and none of them are answering. So my mom texts me, she's like, I'm on the phone with your aunts and uncle. And I'm like, okay. So I knew something happened, but my cousins and my sister and I were like, did he pass away? Like, what's going on? And my aunt comes out finally and is like, look, something happened. He asphyxiated on a piece of bread, which he shouldn't have even had bread. And because he had to do not resuscitate, they normally wouldn't resuscitate him, but he choked on the bread. So it wasn't natural causes. They had to resuscitate him. So now his cognitive functions are not there. So we're like, is he in a coma? Like, what's happening? So you almost think it's like an accident. Like, obviously the cancer was taking a toll on his body, but you don't know if that was it. And he had just started chemo in the hospital too. So now he's got this new chemo a day in there, and he just had 4 teeth pulled, which is a lot on him. And he had lost a lot of weight in the last couple of weeks leading up to that. So I knew that his body was getting ready. And apparently he told someone a couple weeks before that he was ready. Like, my grandfather did his last rites like 5 times just to do it because he wanted to be able to have guests in the hospital. Like, that's the kind of person he was. He was like, get the priest in here. His priest was his best friend from like a long time ago. And he had him in there, and they let us have people in there because he has his last rites. So every time he'd go into the hospital, it was like a party. It was like a frat house. We just all were in there bringing him food and everything. But this last time was very different. And so then he choked, and they were like, all right, we're going to bring him home. So we didn't get to talk to him for like a day or two after that. And then my mom's in the hospital with him, and she FaceTimes me. And when I tell you, this is like a weird thing for some people, but I have always, when we're on FaceTime, I like to screen record, even though you can't hear the sound, because I like to I have so many videos and pictures of us, and everyone used to say, stop filming him, stop. But now they're happy that I did. I always record everything. So I was on FaceTime. It was really hard for me because you could see me crying in some of them, and I watched them, even though it's hard to watch. But he's spacey. Like, he had, now at this point, they're like, he can only have liquids. So now they're going to starve him to death. And I'm thinking he's going to bounce back, because when he had his quadruple bypass in 2015 or 17, we thought he was dead. He looked like a corpse. And he was spacey for like 3 weeks. He was in ICU. He came back, and this man was like, let's go. We got more life to live. And now I'm seeing him like this again. So I'm thinking, I've already seen him like this. I know what he can bounce back from. And this is not the first time. It's not the second time. But he has this, I've never seen him with this, like, it looks like a lollipop is a sponge. And they can put a little water, and that's how he's drinking Coke, or that's how he's drinking water. But you can't drink water, and he won't drink the one that they mix that's really thick. He just will not do it. So, and he's saying things, and he's spacey, but I could see he's not him. So it worried me, but I also, like I said, was like, this is fine. This is fine. Then they bring him home, and they're like, we're going to put him on hospice. Now, I'm thinking, okay, hospice can mean a lot of different things, right? Hospice can be, we have an aide, we have a nurse at the house, someone's helping, he'll bounce back, and then they're going to leave, and we'll just continue to have monitoring, whatever. I didn't realize when I got there the next day that he was going to be in a bed in the living room where his couch was, and like, this is a hard part to think about. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I didn't think I was going to do this. I'm usually pretty good about holding everything in publicly. So
You're doing great.
Like, look at this fucking basket.
Take your time.
It's really hard because I think about that, like walking into that moment and seeing him and being like, oh, this is what we're doing. So now this is the beginning of the end for me. I don't think I believed it until I saw him. But he was still spacey, but he kind of knew like things, but everything from there just went so fast. Like, that next week was really, it happened really fast. And I'll tell you about this one thing after, like, in a little while, we get further into the conversation that was really traumatic about it. Or should I just tell you now?
Tell me whenever you're comfortable.
Okay.
Tell me now.
I don't know if I'm just talking too much.
No, that's why you got a mic, baby. You're good.
I know. Woo. So sorry. So the night. So he passed away on a Friday morning, the 16th of September. And Wednesday night, we all took shifts. We did not want to leave him. Like, yes, he had a nurse come and help do certain things, but we took care of him. So that night, it was me, my uncle, and my mom at the house. My grandmother was all the way in her wing and in the back of the house, and she was sleeping. And, you know, I started noticing, like, at that point, he really wasn't there. There were certain things, but it was so different at that point. Like, I knew we were getting there. Like, you're a lot less hopeful when you see them like that, because you're like, there's what's left here. Like, is this slowly just like getting sucked out of you? So, do people cry on this podcast a lot? Mm-hmm. Okay, good.
I've even cried.
Yeah.
I could try if you want.
Yeah, could you make it?
Would it help?
Feel better?
If I got glasses on. No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
So, it's weird because I'm also not a crier at all. I'm really not, like, about normal stuff, about even normal things girls cry about, and he's the one thing I always cry about. Did you cry? And I've always cried about him.
Did you cry at the end of The Notebook?
No, because I just thought, like,
That was pure disgust right there.
Yeah, I'm like, in those situations, maybe this is for another podcast. Maybe you need to start a different one. But
Yeah, okay.
I'm like I would be more of the like man in the relationship.
Okay.
I feel like
You're a tough Italian woman.
Yeah, exactly.
Gotcha.
I'm a little more alpha. So that night, so it was Wednesday night. He passed away on Friday morning, and that Wednesday night we're all sleeping. It was the first night I was like, okay, I fell asleep, deep sleep. I'm laying on this little couch. He's on oxygen. He's on all that stuff. And the oxygen is loud, but you start getting used to it when it's always there, right, for a few days. And I just never left his side. Like, I brought my laptop. I was a disaster because you're never ready. You will never be ready for it, but you try to prepare yourself. You know this. You try to prepare yourself.
You had a different situation. You had a situation where it was more in sight.
Well, I'm saying with grief of anything, right?
Right.
When you know you're going to lose a relationship.
That's my point. When you know it's going to happen, it's a different process. And I don't know what's better or worse. That's not what I'm saying. And my point is just, you had a situation where you saw it coming. So it's a different stress. It's a different preparation.
Yeah, you know and you can't. I think when I was kind of doing my research on anticipatory grief, I think a lot about, well, I've had to grieve in the past, not a loss like this, but you grieve jobs, you grieve relationships, right. With significant others. Doesn't mean that somebody died to be grieving. Mm-hmm. You grieve your old self sometimes when you're in a transformational phase, and sometimes it's for the better, but you still go through that whole grieving process. Yeah,
there's a kind of generalization of loss.
Right.
Yeah.
So this was completely different. And then it was about probably 4:05, I think. And I jumped. I heard this noise. It was like, wee-oo, wee-oo. And you think you're dreaming, but I knew I wasn't. I jumped so high off the couch, and I'm like, it's happening. The hospital never turned off his defibrillator. I've never heard his defibrillator go off, luckily. Unfortunately, I now did. So I jumped up off the couch, and I'm like, get the magnet, because they told us if it goes off, it means his heart's going into like this arrhythmia, and you have to put the magnet on it so it doesn't shock him. Like, this is what we need to do. Not only are they telling us, well, you're going to be traumatized, but he's going to be in pain. Like, he will feel it. Why didn't we turn the defibrillator off before he left the hospital? I was pissed off. And look, I know people have horrible things, and he was fortunate to not go through any pain, and he was lucky to have us. I always think about those things, but I was terrified in that moment. And so I grabbed the magnet, and I like go in and put it over his chest, and I'm like bawling, like just trying, but holding it in because I don't want him to feel that energy. And I'm just holding the magnet on him, and I'm like, and my eyes are filling, and I'm like, somebody call hospice and like find out what's going on. And so I'm like, someone else Google it, and they're freaking out because I'm like, we don't want him to get shocked. If he's going to pass right now, I don't want him to get shocked. We call my other two aunts, they come up, and we're sitting there, and then we're like, I am begging anyone from the manufacturer. And I'm like a pretty connected person, but I don't know anyone who works for the defibrillator company.
Yeah, don't blame me there. That's a tight niche group.
It's like I don't happen to know anyone. So hospice is trying to call them, and finally, like, my grandmother gets on the phone with hospice, and she's like, this is the worst. And people love hospice. They say it's so great. My grandmother did not have a good experience. She's like, this is the worst fucking thing. Get here and fucking help my husband. He shouldn't have to hear this. You hear it in your body. Like, he hears it. It's fucking vibrating. Even if he's not there.
Yeah, that's rough.
You know what I'm saying? And it sounds like a French siren. So I do the research. I go on YouTube, and I find some guy who's showing what the different sounds are. And that alarm is that the rhythm of his heart is changing. He is either going to have a heart attack or it's slowing down. So finally it goes off. So I take the magnet off, but we decided to tape it. And a few more times during the day, it goes off. And then we make sure we're pressing the magnet down. And we put foam over it so he wouldn't really hear it, but he felt it. But at that point, he also was like sleeping pretty much most of the day, and he didn't, like, he would say like one thing like water or Coke, but not really good. And I think the hardest thing for me was that finally someone from the manufacturer came that afternoon and turned off the defibrillator. And all they do is put a wand over it, like this magnetic thing, turn it off. So now we didn't have to worry about that. And then my grandmother said that night, go home, come back this weekend, you stay with him, just like go home, pull yourself together, and just like get some clothes. So like the next morning, my mom texted me, and I'm like, what's going on? Should I come over now? I'm going to bring my laptop. I'm showered. I have clothes for the weekend. And she's like, the nurse just came and she said that his breathing is labored and his heart is slowing down. And I'm like, okay. And she's like, no, she said like he doesn't have that much time and that it's going to be soon, 9:35 a.m. 9:39 a.m. 9:40 a.m. he's gone. And I'm like, what? Like, what do you mean? So then I got in my car and I just like went there. And I hadn't smelt my grandfather. You know, everyone has personal scent. I had not smelt him since he got home from the hospital. Like, his scent was nowhere in the house. It was the weirdest thing. A whole week that he was in the hospice bed. And as I'm driving there, I had the windows down. I'm like, just disaster. I'm like, how am I going to drive all the way to, you know, North Jersey like this from Edgewater? I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I can't even see the car, you know what I mean, the road. And so I got a whiff of his scent. And I don't know, like I had said something about it on Twitter because it happened to me twice or once after that also. And somebody told me that it's actually a thing. It's like a sign. It's like some kind of clairvoyance. I don't remember what she said, but I had the article bookmarked now on my phone somewhere. And she was just telling me like, that was him telling you that he's there. And it was hard. But then even after that, just to give you a little bit more context, I know I'm rambling now, but well, you can ask whatever you want to ask because this next part is like when I got there. That was really traumatic for me too.
So what happened when you got there?
Okay. So I'm like, do you want to hear the rest?
Yeah, I'm not going to slap you. This is.
I know, but I'm a talker.
I mean,
I am my grandfather's
good thing you're
child.
on a podcast.
I swear, yeah. I swear I'm his child. It's like, and I'm his oldest grandchild of 10. So like, I was the first. So we had a totally different relationship than everyone else. But he,
Woosah.
yeah.
Like
I cry
you watch Seinfeld.
so much at night and like in private that like when you get in public, you're like, no, I don't need to cry.
Yeah, I mean,
oh, gosh.
You're 2 months. You're very much in the wave of it. So you know things are still gonna bubble up. I mean, some people bubble, like let it out years later. Just
light crying for me.
Late crying.
Light
crying.
Yeah, like normally I'd be on the floor, but I have pretty decent control right now. I think.
You do. You're doing great.
So I'm so sorry. Is there a tissue somewhere?
Get her a tissue. Someone get her a tissue.
Oh my god.
But like I said, I mean, I already
mess. He would tell me to stop fucking crying. That's what he would literally.
Based on the attitude you told me, yeah, I think me personally, I have a lot of similar personalities in my life. We're both from the East Coast, Jersey, Italian, that type of thing, and there's a lot of similarities in that personality. I feel like there is a lot of comfort with that in many ways. Thank you so much. Thank you, Kleenex, for support. That should be a sponsor. Kleenex, yeah. Come to my sponsor, Dead Talks. I think that's
really
prime.
We should work on that partnership for you.
Yeah.
No, I really will.
We'll talk after. So don't worry, we're not making money off Kleenex anyway. So I don't know what to do with no Kleenex in my hand.
She's smiling. Do you want a tissue? No, you're not crying. You're okay.
I could hold it just for aesthetics.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Now we're really.
Let me know when
don't show the logo because we gotta get paid if they want us to have the logo in there.
I'm gonna cover it now. It just looks like a box. Like I said, you're 2 months in, and I'm not gonna. I know you. Thank you for saying I'm an expert, but I'm not. But we've all had different experiences. But my curiosity, I don't know if I'm sure you had more to say to that story, so I'm not trying to cut you off. But it was way more traumatic than I expected in a sense that you had all those ups and downs. You see him beating it one time, and you know he's going to come back. Then when he doesn't, and then when he does, it happens so quick. That's because it seemed like it was dragged out in many ways, right? So
exactly.
To see that 1 minute go by, and like that was it.
Not even, yeah. And it was a text message, and I'm like, but I was just coming there, like
Yeah.
And you almost think like, did they send me home? Because I knew it was coming because the defibrillator was going off, and everyone was like, well, it could just be going off. Okay, hospice had also told us that the defibrillator was going off because the sensor was all the way down in his wing of the hallway where their master bedroom is. And he wasn't near it for the whole week. He's been in the living room. And I'm like, he sits in the fucking living room on that couch all the time. That makes no sense, number one. Number two, we went to Italy for 2 weeks. So how the fuck are you going to tell me that the defibrillator is making noise? Just say what it is. Yeah. Like, we all know how to Google, and we're not stupid. So for me, also, I was when I tell you research, I could have probably went to, like, I was pre-med in this. As far as I'm concerned, I was pre-med in this disease. Like, I knew everything about it. I'm still involved because now I want to give back for families who are going through this and don't understand, because there are a lot of mixed stories and, I mean, experiences. And you have people come out of the woodwork once you start posting it that have these cures and this and that. And you're like, all right, well, but you want to listen to what people are saying.
So you feel, I mean, you feel a level of frustration based on things went down.
Yeah.
Naturally.
I mean, and I don't want to be angry at anyone because I know he wouldn't want that. He would, but no time was ever going to be enough.
Right.
No time with him would be enough. If he lived till 93, I'd still be sitting here like,
of course,
can't believe he died.
Yeah, and
Can you though?
especially when things happen like that, you really start questioning things, shoulda, coulda, woulda, if this, that, which is like important to reflect on. I think I'm not saying
dangerous,
but it's
like you said.
At some point, yeah. Because like my mom, we're gonna talk about you a little bit real quick. So my Uncle Tommy right now is not he's not doing so well.
I'm so sorry.
I mean, thank you. And she was kind of reflecting, not to get in detail, but she was just made some points. We were having a conversation last night over a few glasses of wine, and she was just mentioning, the past is the past. Like thinking about how things could have went or should have went. Different experiences. So I'm not telling you this is right or wrong.
But it's equally valid and important. Yeah. So don't diminish yours.
No. I just don't like comparing situations because feelings can variables.
You're not comparing. You're putting it next to it and just explain it.
Put it next to you like this. Take that. Okay. It's a Kleenex box for you, and it's just like sometimes a point where you can hammer on it so many times, but it's like at what point is it just A, not doing a service to you, and B, just not getting you to where you want to be, And so it just takes time, but clearly you're frustrated about it, as I would be frustrated too.
I'm mad at myself too, though.
Yeah. At what point do you how do you deal with that? How are you dealing with that right now besides talking about it with me?
There's weeks that I don't leave my house at all. Like I'm just working remote and I make sure everything is remote. And then there are days when I need to get out of the house. I am trying everything. It's honestly a little bit strange because for someone who's so private, I've been public about my grieving process, at least on Twitter. I think people see on Instagram, I'll post him a lot.
And now on Dead Talks.
And now I'm on a podcast about it. But I think that's really important because there are so many people. I mean, when I tell you, when I posted that he passed away, like I said before, a lot of people resonated with that because they felt like they knew him. Mm. But also, and people would always, more content, more pop content. But also people would share their stories. And so I met a lot of people. And then I went on, this is going to sound strange, but I went on Reddit because I was so desperate to find, I don't want to say a community, but answers and people's experiences. And like, is there going to be something that pops? I always used to say when I was younger, because he always left me with a lot of, no matter what happened to me, if I was grieving the loss of, whatever it was in my life, he always left me with these gems. We call them popisms. And, he always used to say, well, a grudge is the heaviest thing to hold. And there was one night when I'm like, looking at this little urn, because now I have the urn, and that's a whole other thing too, because I have one of the little urns, and like when I'm like naked and about to shower, I cover it with a towel. So my mentality is like he's in the jar. Oh, wow. That's a whole weird concept too when someone's cremated. That to me, I never knew I was going to feel, but I'll like cover it with a towel because I'm like, oh, I don't want him to. And then I'm like, well, maybe the universe kind of like blurs it out for people, because I know a lot of people who have passed away. So I'm hoping I'm
sure he's looking the other way.
Exactly. I'm like, maybe they put like a blurry screen, like a frosty
fucking hope so.
Screen over people. Yeah, I'm like, God, I don't want him to see me sexting anyone or doing anything, that he would be like, hello.
I think about that too, is because like, we all have a weird things. I'm not doing anything super weird, but like I have this stuff. I mean, I don't want to do that. Believe me, you don't know me, but weird is a weird. Weird is an adjective that I've been described way too many times. But I'm told there's weird, and then there's interesting weird. Thankfully, I've been told I'm interesting weird. So take that however the hell you want.
Okay.
What was I going with that? What were we talking about? Oh, it was weird things. So I always think like, how much like my dad or anyone like if they're watching, I don't know, I'm not putting any.
That's how I feel
too. If they watch, like, how much you watching? Like sometimes you gotta turn the lights off. I don't know, like what.
And there's other people for them to watch if they're watching.
But it's also part of like, okay, well I don't know. If you're watching, I'm sorry you saw that. I'm sorry you saw that.
So edibles for me were something that.
That was me last night.
Yeah. I had stopped taking edibles for a while. And as soon as he passed away, I was like, I am going to literally get to a way higher level.
Literally.
But like than I've ever been before. I'm going to get violently high off edibles so I can be in a totally released. This is probably not the smartest thing to do, but this is what I did. I wanted to release everything and just have a different perspective that I couldn't control. And it was scary, but it was also almost therapeutic when I came out of it because I was by myself. I was home. I was in the bed, and I'm like, and I'm just thinking to myself, okay, none of it makes sense, right? Because I don't know if he's just gone, if he's with past relatives. I don't know what I believe. I genuinely don't. I'm Catholic, Christian, fine, but I do not know what I believe. But we're here somehow.
Yeah, that's for sure.
We're here somehow. Something had to happen before the Big Bang Theory. This is the stuff that I think about when I'm high off edibles. So I'm like, there has to be something. I don't know what it is. I don't know what to believe. None of it makes sense. Do they just go somewhere else and restart? I don't know, and I don't like to speculate, right? But
I think you do.
I mean, I was speculating, but not consciously, subconsciously. Right, yeah. So, I was thinking back, and that was the same night when I was thinking back when he said, a grudge is the heaviest thing to hold. And he always used to tell me that, because if I'd be mad about something, he'd be, you got to let it go. You got to let it go. You got to let it go. And I remember saying when I woke up and I was completely sober, because when you come off edibles, you're like, I'm great now. I looked at the urn and I said, you lied. You're wrong. And I'm like, he would have asked for a whole explanation on it. But I basically said, to myself, a grudge is not the heaviest thing to hold. This grief is the heaviest thing to hold. There's no worse feeling. I've grieved things before. I've lost friends. I've traumatically, I've grieved and hurt really bad for other people. But it also, this was the one. This was the one. And let me tell you, it was such a transitional phase in my life. And look, I'm only 2 months in tomorrow, but it was such a turning point for me, because I thought, well, anything that has happened to me before, I have nothing to lose now. Yes, of course I have things to lose. But this was my one person. This was my person. This was the worst thing in my eyes that could happen to me. Sorry, Mom, I love you too. But this is the worst thing, is losing him was going to destroy me. I did not think I would ever be able to function, and I'm still numb. So I don't know. Am I going to have a fucking meltdown in 4 months and have a Britney moment, shave my head, and have a Kanye moment? Because to be honest, a lot of people, I am not condoning anything that Kanye has done. But I think that a lot of people don't realize that what Kanye is going through, and I'm not making excuses, so I don't want this to be a political thing, but Kanye losing his mother the way he did, I think he holds that so much on his heart and on his just mind at all times, because the plastic surgery, he paid for it. It was another country. It was something he could have controlled. In a way, you can't really control anything. But I think that grief was the beginning of this spiral so many years ago, and people just didn't see it. I also still think Kanye is a genius, and I think everyone would agree with musically, artistically. But I think he's got a lot of demons because of that. And I think sometimes I start to see myself doing things. But I said, you know what? I have nothing to fucking lose anymore. Nothing you could throw at me. Bring on the problems. Like Drake said, right? Bring on the motherfucking problems. Nothing could bother me anymore. So I really feel that. I really feel invincible in that sense. But that doesn't mean I don't hurt every day.
Yeah, and that hurt is going to continue. Yeah, I mean,
it's only going to get worse before it gets better. I know that. It's already been getting worse.
Yeah, like I said, you're so early onto it that you're going to continually change. You're going to continually evolve as long as you stay as aware. It's great. It sounds like you're very aware of this or that, but at the same time, I think you just got to let yourself. I've said this many times, and so am I guess. You got to let yourself feel, and it seems like you're good at that. I think
I'm on the cusp of that. I try to.
You got to let yourself feel, and just I don't know. Like we said earlier about expectations, Maybe don't have any grief expectations. Just go for the ride. Try to stay positive and understand for the man you're explaining who he was and his personality.
He's the fucking best.
And it's corny to say this and cliche. By the way, now that my podcast is doing better and better, the comments are brutal. Some of you, 99% of them are positive, but some of these comments are brutal. Someone gave me shit. Someone gave me shit for saying what I was about to say to you. So if that person's watching right now, I'm going to say it again. So deal with it.
Please do.
It was just conversation, based on who this
brief podcast. You're commenting shit like that.
Oh, shit's got weird. Someone that LOL cancer one time. I'm like. That's what I'm dealing with.
Because people don't believe that cancer's real, right?
I don't know. That was flat too. What the hell? I don't know what I'm going to say.
Very flat.
And so my point was about. What was my point?
You're like, I'm going to tell you something that this person.
Oh, so I'm saying I don't know your grandfather, but based on how you're speaking to him, it's I think you have something to lean on based on knowing who he was and the relationship you had, that little conversation you can have with these people, whether it's real or not. It's he'll tell you you're going to be good, this and all that rainbow and sunshine stuff. You're going to be okay. And he's going to want you, a relationship like that.
Will I though?
Will you what?
Will I be okay?
Yeah, I mean, I heard Bill Burr say it too. Let's just why not pretend to be okay, and if you're not going to be okay, you'll deal with it then. It's better. I'd rather pretend to be okay than actually be okay. If I'm
now.
just you'll get there. Just give it time and believe you will. And if you're not, then you'll deal with it then. What am I going to say? But at the end of the day, you have this loving relationship with him. I think you'll know. You have to talk to yourself about that. But if like you've said it a couple of times, insinuating what he would tell you, I'm not going to tell you for you, but I think he would. You know how he would want you to feel. And be grateful for what he's had. He gave you a little scent to get a little love right there, right?
So, well, that was another thing you just made me think of. I haven't gotten, everyone says, you're going to get all these signs. At first, I was begging for signs.
That's what I do every day.
The scent, I was like, oh, maybe it's something that just like is familiar to me, but I don't smell it the way I used to when I'd walk in that house.
Yeah.
And that house is huge, so it feels even bigger now. And the thing that's really hard is like, everything I read on all the podcasts, listen to on podcasts, everything I read on all the blogs and this and that, and people sharing their experiences, which, by the way, that was like the most amazing thing is just Twitter and Instagram and people that don't even know each other coming together. I mean, it really, I'm like, damn, maybe I need to start like a Reddit group and get all these people together and we can go on a grief retreat. Maybe you and I need to do this big grief retreat for people.
I'm down. Ayahuasca.
Wouldn't that be cool? Grief gang.
Whatever.
Oh, I think there's a podcast.
Yeah, I actually had her on, Amber. Shout out to Amber and the Grief Gang podcast.
She was one of the first podcasts I started looking when I was like, I need resources right before he passed because I'm like, man the ship, what am I going to fucking do? Like my life is about to be over. And in a lot of ways, I feel like that part of my life is over. That hole is never getting filled.
Well, there's also comfort in that community of just like even though you're grieving with people around you, there's a sense of feeling alone because like you're the only one feeling what you're feeling. So finding other people that can relate, this is naturally comfortable.
So let me ask you a question, and you don't have to answer this, but at any point, because I felt like this. So I had a friend, one of my best friends, whose husband had a tragic construction accident and passed away. Okay. And I showed up for her. We all did. But after this, I feel like, did I show up for her? And I said this, I wrote this whole paragraph. My friend whose mother had an accidental death as well. My best friend whose grandmother went through the same process. You don't want to be on top of someone because you're like, they need their space, but you want them to know you're there. Yeah. But everyone feels differently. And what they need, you don't know because a lot of times they won't tell you or they can't articulate that because their mind is not there.
Yeah.
For me, a lot of my friends and people around me know that I like to be alone. And when I want someone, I'll ask for it, but I'm never going to push you away. But there will be a point when I'll go in my room and I'll close the door and just like, I need the time or you won't hear from me for a couple of days. I am always strong for everyone else. I didn't really know how to be strong for myself, but I felt very guilty because I started to think, and this is what I want to know, if you ever felt this way, that maybe I didn't show up for people who were feeling this kind of grief and loss in their life because I didn't know how to. I'm like, holy fuck. They went through that, and like I thought I was showing up for them, but maybe I wasn't.
Yeah, I don't know. That's something you have to ask the person, obviously, but I think experientially, like you said, everyone experiences it differently.
Well, they say, oh, you did show up, though.
If they did, then you're good.
You did. You were amazing. You're always there for me. But
then you're in the clear.
I feel, but
well, that's on you.
No one wants to make you feel guilty while you're grieving.
Right, and maybe they're sugarcoating. I don't know, but like the way I am with my friends, I feel like there was one time one of my really good friends kind of pointed out that if I didn't show up, that was eye-opening for me. I was like very vague about it, and I think I took the approach of giving him space and not saying anything when I should have probably said something. But my biggest thing now, when someone's going through anything, I don't try to force advice or force my thoughts. I think, like you said, it's just important. Especially the relationship that you're close to them. I'm very open, like very specific. Hey, if you need something, just tell me. I'm not going to bother you.
Actually tell me.
But actually tell me.
I'm not just saying.
Yeah, so I think you got to be clear. Like, if you want that, I'm dead ass serious. I'm not just saying this to be polite. Like, I'm here for you whenever you want. Dead talks ass serious.
Dead talks ass serious.
I'm here for you if you need it, and if you tell me what you want, because I don't know what you want. You know what I mean? So I think it is important to give people space, but then some people, like you said, might not want that space. They want the attention. You can't assume. You can only do the best you can, but I think it's letting them know somehow that if you need anything truly, what can I do for you? Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's the $1 million question, I guess. Like I said, everyone handles it and wants to do it differently, but I think it's also up to the other person to kind of let you know, as long as there's a buffer zone that they can feel comfortable to do that. Some people don't want to be a burden to other people.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of layers to it. So I wouldn't hang yourself up on how you've handled other situations, because now you know more than ever. So now you will maybe be better prepared for the next time.
And I also, the next time. And then, but it's also hard because you want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt around you also? Like, oh, this person didn't show up. This person didn't say anything. This person wasn't there. Is it like, do you take a mental note? Like, I didn't even have that in me, the energy to be mad at people. But there was one point when there was someone who I expected to show up for me the way I always show up for them, and they didn't. And I was like, okay, noted. And I started to see a decline in that relationship. And then they came around. They were like, I just wanted to give you space. But then they were totally like, nothing happened after that. And that bothered me.
Right.
I'm just like,
that's natural. I could see that. But at the same time, it kind of goes back to what your grandfather said about holding a grudge. And part of it is plenty of those grudges are deserved because people just did that. So it's up to you. It's up to you if you just want to kind of let it diffuse, in my opinion, or you approach them, tell them this really bothered me, this and that, and just express how you feel. And then wherever it goes from there, I don't know. You don't do it or do it, but like that's up to you, your approach. Do you take a mental note? Do you approach them? Do you just let it go out? Do you want to rebuild it? I don't know. Some people just literally have no idea, especially around this topic.
I know.
Some people don't, and some people are just assholes. I don't know.
Some people are just assholes. You're right.
That's the way of life too. Some people are just genuine assholes, and that's their
life.
That's their journey.
Does that bother you too when people say like, well, this is part of life? Yeah, no shit. Or, oh, well, he lived such a long life. Or, oh, he had such a great life. Or she, whoever.
My buddy Michael said that he lost his grandmother, and he was like, I hate when people say they lived a long life, this, that, but it still hurts. And it's like, it does, of course. And it's a double-edged thing. Sometimes it's nice to say that it's a positive glass half full. They had this long life, but it still hurts. So
yeah, no time would ever be enough.
Yeah, how are we on time over there? Oh, we're good. Okay.
Shit.
Oh, we're good. We're good. What I do want to ask, I want to kind of dig into just do you have any methods of getting through it specifically right now? Like, are you talking to anyone? Are you just kind of just doing your thing and seeing what happens?
Twitter.
I
once I get it out, and sometimes I leave a lot of things in my drafts. God, I hope no one ever gets in.
Oh, so you're talking about express.
I'll vocalize because people will respond and they'll say things, and then posting a picture really helps me. But I think, I really haven't. This is the first time I've actually sat down with someone, and there you go. There's my form of therapy. I love talking about him. All I want to do is talk about him, and I think people are sick of hearing it. But I think a lot of people also know what my relationship with him was like. I think I get a lot of people who will have a normal conversation with me and be like, and they'll like slip it in there just to make sure I know that they're there, or that they're thinking of me, and they'll see my eyes start to water, and they're like, I knew you weren't okay. And I'm like, no, but I have to be. I don't have a choice. I have to be strong. What about that was my mother's father.
Yeah.
It's my aunt's and uncle's father.
It's good that you see that, because like
it was everyone else. It's my grandmother's husband all these years.
It is a choice to be okay. At least like to be tough for a little bit, but
being okay doesn't mean you're not hurting. And that's a common misconception.
For sure. And it's okay not to be okay. I've said that in a corny old thing that I said, but it's okay not to be okay. But I don't know, you gotta a lot of it, I think you're figuring out. You're trying things out, and you're on your own little path. And I think it's good to hear from other people. That helps. But at the same time, you got to trust yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing. Like, take whatever you got from everyone and me and anyone else.
Holy shit.
I think that helps me at least, getting perspective. But perspective is the end of the day. That is the big. You do have the power to get over this. So like when you said before, am I going to be okay?
I'll never be over it, and you'll never be over it.
No.
Yeah.
If I said that was a slip.
No, I know what you mean, but I'm just saying, like, for people who, your people come at you in the comments.
Those people.
I think there's never, I'm going to let go of it or I'm going to move on. Yes, we have to move forward, right? And we have to get into that place and get over the hump. I think one thing also, my best friend, who had lost her husband, she was pregnant, they'd just gotten married. It was like really just a series of events and young. And I'm like, he had so much more life to live. And she sends me stuff all the time, and I think about her all the time. And I always have, but a lot of times I'm like, am I selfish? And she loved my grandfather loved her. And so, it's one of those things where there's so many perspectives, so many things, and there's no right answer to any of this. We're all figuring it out. And I think it's great to be able to share resources and experiences, because there are things that trigger me, like, I don't know, but there's just a lot of things that trigger me or trigger thoughts in my head that make me feel like, okay, if she could do it, I could do it. Or I don't have to be okay with this, but I can give her this advice too. We exchange. I think exchanging those stories really helps, and being able to talk to people like you who have this amazing platform and this community that you've built. I mean, that's pretty fucking awesome. This is not a topic that a lot of people talk about. So you need to commend yourself, or I need to give you your flowers if people haven't. Obviously, over 100,000 people have, and you probably have even more listens and views than that. But I think you need to know what you're doing is helping so many people. And you're probably just also trying to help yourself at the beginning of this, right?
What I've noticed, it's been a lot of that above. It selfishly has helped me. And sometimes it's often helped the person speaking when they didn't expect it. So it's kind of like I don't know, we're all just in this shit together at some point, even though in this time, this climate that we're in, sometimes it feels like it's way too individualistic and we got to come together. But I think that's the beauty of someone like you being vulnerable and sharing these discussions. Because I had a thought yesterday we were talking about numbers and thinking about how much this and that, about how well the podcast is doing. And I was outside going for a walk by myself. I was like, obviously that's important to get this where I want to be. I was like, some episodes are going to help 10,000 people. Some episodes are going to help 1,000 people.
Yeah.
And one episode might help one person. I'm like, you know what? I'm good with that. I'm good with that. And I think that's the part of sharing these stories, is that some stories are going to resonate with people in different ways. Some stories are going to resonate with people more than another, and that's cool. That's the reason why I want these diverse conversations, and someone like you coming on so fresh on the scene with this stuff.
Yeah.
So like a newly initiated club member, as I would say. Yeah. And so you're going through it right now. So you also gotta commend yourself for where you are 2 months later. Give yourself some credit and allow yourself to just trust yourself and know that it's going to be okay, even if you don't think that. Just be a little bit of an actress.
Yeah, therapy was never mine. Was never my thing and my way, and so I just didn't go that route. But I think other people, my sister and others, have decided to opt for that. I think for me, I was about to restart my podcast because my grandfather really wanted me to do that because he knew I loved it and that it was something that I should do, and that I never take enough time because I'm so busy building everyone else's brand. But I had relaunched it, and then the couple of weeks leading up to what happened. So I was like, I can be spotty. I don't care. I don't care about this. And then I came back a week or two after just for 2 episodes, and I haven't posted since because I needed to give myself some grace before I get back into the hard-hitting stuff of alpha females. But I did this 2-part grief casting is what I called it. And it was just, the first one was about anticipatory grief and what led up to it, which I kind of shared an overview of that, but I was crying on it. And then the second one was about, okay, now I'm here. I'm in this, I've passed this threshold. I'm grieving, and this is what I'm experiencing. I have a long way to go. I'm going to have a lot of highs, lows, ups, downs, all the in between. One thing for me that I know for sure is I'm still numb. I'm still some days in denial. I am very aware of what's happening and that this is real, but I can cry at the drop of anything when I think of him. There are things that you're like, oh my God, that's so terrible. And everyone, the whole room could be crying, and I'll just not feel it because right now what I feel is this, and that's what gets me. So if anyone does need an actress, all I would have to do is literally, to cry on command, is think about my grandfather, hold up a big picture, and I can be cast in any movie because I'll just be in real tears, And I think that's, you don't want to, you can't fake those things.
No. I mean, that's also, we said a bunch of times, that is as corny as it sounds, it's the price of love. And the reason you feel this is because of the relationship you had. So corny as hell to say, but I mean, that's got to hold some little warmth in what you're going through. So I think you should just continue on the ride and just stay the strong Italian woman that you are. Like what else? What else do I get? What are you going to do? What are we going to do? I don't know. I said this a million times too. I don't know.
Does it make you feel good though?
What?
To know what you're doing? Or are you just going to be really humble right now?
No, it makes me feel good. It definitely feels good, but
it's important that you know.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I have a big enough head as it is naturally coming out of my mom's womb, so I don't need to. I appreciate the compliments. I don't need it anymore. But I appreciate that. It's I'm seeing the impact it has. I really believe in this conversation. And for anyone that is listening that has helped you, and has sent me messages letting me know, that keeps me going. So I hope it's helped you in some ways, and I guarantee where you're at right now is going to resonate with a lot of people, and that's why you're here. So thank you for just sitting there, regardless of what you said, and it was amazing. Regardless of what you said, the fact that you're willing to talk is literally what it's about.
Yeah, and I think it's important. It was really important for me to come here and talk to you about it because even if you haven't had the same exact situation, I know just posting that, a lot of people dealt with hospice, or a lot of people dealt with cancer, or just loss in general. And I think people can relate to just seeing the emotion, even if your situation was completely different. Even if you're, you just lost your job and you're grieving that loss, it's still a loss. It's still something that, maybe you just lost everything. It doesn't matter what it is. And I think that's what I want people, that's why I'm vulnerable. That's why I'm okay crying on camera and saying, you know what, if you feel this and you have that, we're going to be able to get through it. We have to.
Yeah, you have to.
Somehow, some way.
You gotta.
Life goes on.
This might be a terrible time joke, but I lost my beanie on the way here, so I'm grieving the loss of my black beanie and freezing my ass off when I leave here. But
that's traumatic. It is traumatic.
Damn, sorry guys. You know how this podcast goes. I ruined the moment. No, I'm hoping if you made it to this far of the episode and you heard me say that, and I'm trying to take the stress off you. I'll take the punches. No and also the worst transition from this conversation. Is there anything? Well, first of all, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for real. It's a pleasure to meet you on this platform. I mentioned that earlier. How it's cool to connect with people for the first time when we're talking about this shit. It's like, I don't know if it only gets up from here or down from here, one or the other. But
I don't know.
Is there anything you want to say before we, wrap this up? I don't know if you want to plug anything or any last words. The mic can't literally drop the mic, but if you want to, you can.
My grandfather would want me to plug everything, but no, I just want people to know that you're not alone. And my DMs are always open because I've always been someone who advocates a lot for mental health, and I am someone who somehow does better in solidarity, but I think there are strength in numbers, and that's why I'm really appreciative that there are people like this gentleman right here who have just created such an amazing community and platform. But I do have so many resources that I'm happy to share and kind of even just listen. I'm like always there to listen to people. I read my DMs when I get the chance. There's a lot of them, and they're interesting.
Well, good thing like 80% of my audience are women, so you shouldn't get too many creepy DMs. But yeah, so thank you.
Yeah.
You're the best. Seriously, it's a pleasure to meet you. And for everyone listening, I appreciate you guys for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Until next time, hopefully another episode in New York City will happen. So shout out to New York City. Thank you all. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Dead Talks. Please do not forget to hit the subscribe button and also the notification bell. That'll give you updates as to when we post a new video, more episodes, and more content in general. We are streaming on all the major podcast platforms, including Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Pandora, and all that. And also find us on Instagram at Dead Talks Podcast or www.deadtalks.net. Thank you so much.